Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the globe. We live in a time when speed has become an imperative. We have things that are moving fast. We need to act fast. We need to address global challenges. We need to connect policy with technology and entrepreneurship, global challenges with business. I'm Roberto Alvarez. I'm the Executive Director of the GFCC, the Global Federation of Competitiveness Councils. If this is your first time here, the GFCC, it's a global membership, multi-stakeholder organization. We have members that are leading research universities, corporations, government agencies, and private sector councils and similar industry bodies. Combining our members and fellows, we have a footprint in 30 countries. Today, we're here for the GFCC 2021 Global Innovation Summit. And to get started, I really wanted to invite the founders of the GFCC, our chairman, Chad Holliday, and our president, Deborah Wentz-Smith.
Now.
Welcome, Chad. Welcome, Deborah. The Global Innovation Summit 2021, it's a continuation of a process that we started in the beginning of 2021 with the Frame the Future series. Over a period of 6 months, we hosted speakers from 26 nations. We had people in attendance from 62 different nations, more than 1,000 participants. We gathered insights, we generated new ideas, we generated a series of recommendations. The Frame the Future lenses was all about seeing how we can weave 5 future-defining topics into competitiveness strategies: innovation, sustainability, resilience, inclusiveness, and partnership. And now we are kicking off the 2021 Global Innovation Summit. Chad, Deborah, it's great to have you here. Thank you for your inspiration and thank you for bringing us here today. Chad, I want to invite you to welcome participants of our 2021 Global Innovation Summit.
Welcome, everyone. Roberto, thank you for your leadership. As we started this year, we could have been very disappointed because COVID was keeping us from having our normal session about this time of year somewhere in the world. But Roberto, thanks to your leadership and your resilience, one of our key things we developed, we came up with, I think, a better way of going about this year with the Frame the Future series. We were able to be more inclusive, but because we used the technology, and I think we all learned so many more things than we possibly could have done in a one face-to-face meeting. So congratulations to this whole team for what you've done, and we're going to have a great couple days here together. Over to you, Deborah.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening, everyone, and let me welcome you to the 2021 Global Innovation Summit of the GFCC. I want to thank our leadership. Thank you, Chad, for being the chairman of the GFCC and for your inspiration and your tremendous participation this year. I want to thank, of course, Roberto Alvarez, our executive director, and the great team of the GFCC that have enabled us to have an extremely productive, engaged year together, discussing these huge challenges and opportunities as we navigate the pandemic. Very importantly, as we keep our eye on the future to build and design the new economy of the future. I want to thank all of the members of the GFCC, our members of the board, our sustaining members, our members from academia, from industry, from organizations. And let me say I'm very pleased to welcome today our new sustaining member, the Technology Innovation Institute of Abu Dhabi, that we're delighted that its new chairman, CEO, Dr. Ray Johnson, has joined the GFCC and will be speaking later during our program. And during our sessions over the next 2 days, I will be very excited to recognize additional members and partners of the GFCC. I also want to thank our partners in Australia, who last December hosted the first ever virtual GFCC Innovation Summit under the leadership of Minister Greg Hunt and the Advisory Committee for Competitiveness and Health in Australia. Interestingly, before the pandemic started in March, March of 2020, our Australian colleagues were looking at health as a very key driver of competitiveness, of prosperity and security. So as we went into the year and designed the summit for 2020, we were really ahead of the curve in understanding and sharing best practices and how we all need to work together in our own nations and as community to gravitate into a new future. We have a great group of leaders over the next 2 days that are going to share their insights and their wisdom. We're going to talk a little bit, I think, of some of the lessons that we've learned over the last year. I want to thank everyone who participated in our great work we did leading through the chasm and into the future economy. This is really the result of the conversations that led up to our initiative around Frame the Future. So we're going to drill down, we're going to learn, we're going to exchange best practices, and we're going to set the GFCC on the course for being together physically in 2022. And we have some very exciting announcements about that later in our program. So thank you all for joining, and we look forward to a very active participation over the next 2 days.
Deborah, Chad, thank you so much for your comments and welcoming everybody. But let me ask you something. You Chad, you joined for various Frame the Future sessions over the year, and Deborah was in all sessions. Is there anything that you have heard, that you've learned, that you've seen that called your attention that maybe you would like to share with people in attendance here today in advance of the summit?
Roberto, first, all the sessions were just great. I felt like they all used my time well and everybody's time well. What I learned the most was listening to people that were on the panels that I would never have a chance to meet otherwise. Entrepreneurs that were trying new things and hearing how they overcame their obstacles. So I think what I took away from this is listening to people that are on the ground, coming up with solutions to the problems are critical. And we got to constantly be infusing people with new ideas and new thoughts that aren't in our daily lives. And that'd be my takeaway that I'm trying to apply after learning from this series.
Well, building on what our chairman has said, what I was really struck by throughout the conversations, and they were very deep, they were rich, but they were spontaneous. They were people that had come together, yes, our GFCC members, but as our chairman mentioned, we had some great new young entrepreneurs from around the world who were sharing their experiences, but very importantly, what they were doing. It was very action-oriented. And kind of two themes that cut through everything emerged to me. And that was the importance of new design thinking. We had to design new systems, new ways of working, new ways of living together, and how quickly that was happening. So we weren't just waiting about what we were going to do. The GFCC community was actually creating the doing and turning it into action. And so the sessions were extremely inspiring.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you for your inspiration. So let's continue the agenda. And one of the things that we do every year, we launch during the Global Innovation Summit new thought products that we have developed in the GFCC. And today we're launching two of those products, the 2021 Global Competitiveness Principles and the GFCC Frame the Future report. I want you to take the time, click on the lower right corner of your screen and download those documents. If you are with your mobile phone, you can also use the QR code, and that will take you to the link where you'll be able to download these two documents. our Frame the Future report, and our 2021 Global Competitiveness Principles. Let me share a few words and explain to you what those products are. Since 2010, when the GFCC was created, we've been every year reviewing key strategy areas for competitiveness and launching a series of global competitiveness principles. We use the same framework, and every year we review the principles. We launch a new version in light of the theme that we are addressing in that year. In 2021, we're talking Frame the Future. How can we weave innovation, sustainability, resilience, partnerships, and inclusiveness into future competitiveness strategies? The Frame the Future report, the other document that I'm inviting you to download, to check, and share with your colleagues, it results from this conversation series that Chad, Deborah, and I have just mentioned. We started that in June 2021, and in the report, you'll find the main findings, the main ideas, and a series of recommendations for different dimensions of competitiveness strategies. You will also find there 10 goals. We are covering 5 topics, and we have 2 goals associated to each one of those topics. Let me give you one example. When we think sustainability, we're talking about putting a price on carbon and also tripling the investment in R&D for clean tech. Those are the 2 goals associated to sustainability. Chad and Deborah, I wanted to invite you to maybe to comment about those 2 products, starting with you, Chad. And as I just mentioned, sustainability. You are a sustainability champion. Not long ago, you were in Glasgow for the COP26. Throughout your career, you've led various businesses from DuPont, where you were the chairman and CEO, and other companies where you left your sustainability mark. So maybe if you could comment about our goals and the Frame the Future report. Any ideas that you'd like to share?
Oh, thank you, Roberto. Let me start off by sharing with everybody, how I use the principles and now the 10 goals every year. So I have a little process I do personally. I look at my objectives, things I'm trying to accomplish in the next year, and then I put down the 10 principles as they've been updated and say, well, how well am I applying the principles to each one of those objectives? Every time I go through, I get a little different twist, a little different approach of how to go about it. Now, with these 10 goals that we have, I'm doing the same thing with the 10 goals. Put the 10 goals down beside what I'm trying to accomplish. How can I apply those goals? What I found is the way I go about my objectives is a bit better for taking time out to compare it to those 2 documents. So I would encourage everyone to do that. Sustainability, in your specific question, Roberto, is so important. We are using the Earth's resources much faster than they can be replenished. And we could be the inhabitants of the Earth that are so smart that we take out our own existence. That would not be a very good answer. I think the 2 key goals that come from sustainability of somehow recognizing the cost to the world of climate change, and then focusing on a solution to that through much more technology development, R&D, are 2 great goals. We just came out of this COP period. There's so much stuff going around. There's so many things we could work on. But if we focus just on those 2, I think we can make a big difference. And I think maybe the focus would be what I would urge everyone to do. And so in your work, see how you can apply those 2 to what you're doing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chad. Deborah, what would you like to share?
Well, first, let me say that, the GFCC global principles, as you mentioned, really have been a hallmark of the GFCC since its inception, and our 10th year anniversary when we gathered in Porto Alegre in Brazil in 2011. And what's very powerful about the principles is that each year, based on the challenges, the opportunities, and as well as the goals of our hosts. And as I said, this year we're virtual, but next year, let's pray we will all be together. We are, yes, creating new principles, but very importantly, We are assessing and measuring where we are, where we stand in terms of accomplishments. What have we done over the last year to advance these principles that as a package, as a system, drive inclusive growth, prosperity, security throughout the world? And we very importantly as well, link these principles to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so we're mapping them against these very, very important global goals that have been embraced by the United Nations. I'll comment on the imperative of accelerating and redesigning new models and new ways for public-private partnerships to be designed and to be implemented. We certainly learned during the pandemic that governments alone could not act and design what we had to do. Private sector leaders and entities could not do this alone. Universities could not, communities. We had to really come together. So public-private partnerships really are at the heart of getting to a sustainable future, to building resiliency, to having not just so-called 21st century physical infrastructure, which of course is very, very critical, even though we're here today speaking in a digital context. We wouldn't be able to do that unless we had the digital infrastructure enabling this, but that we have to work together in concert around the new models for public-private partnerships. And this takes us into the very important principle of inclusiveness, and not just doing this as an afterthought, but in everything we do to think purposefully about how we include the whole variety of stakeholders, from what I would say the generation of wisdom, the two bookends of life, younger people that are creating the future for them, people who are at the heart of their career in life, and then some of us who are a little bit in the so-called wisdom era. So the inclusiveness that we purposely focus so much on this year are embedded in the principles. The other one that I would quickly highlight is, and again, some of this is because of what we've had to deal with and learn through the pandemic, but it's always been a principle in the GFCC, and that is to make our regulatory systems and environments innovation friendly. That without having a regulatory environment that is both dealing with our present, but signaling what we need to do to reach the future, we're going to be immobilized. And this is very, very important with the new technologies that are not just emerging, that are already here, whether we're talking about autonomous vehicles, we're talking about, new RNA vaccines, technology that led to the COVID vaccines. We saw during the pandemic warp speed progress in that, and that governments working with the private sector had to adjust in real time outdated, outmoded regulatory environments, while at the same time ensuring the safety and health of their citizens. So creating safe places in nations for almost regulatory laboratories as we move into a future that's driven by artificial intelligence, quantum systems, et cetera, is going to take a whole new set of creative thinking and models. And so those countries that can address this and can move quickly are going to have a real advantage in competitiveness, but it's also going to be important for the world at large. So those are two that I wanted to highlight: the acceleration, criticality of our public-private partnerships in the most inclusive way, and creating new models for how we address the regulatory imperatives that we need as societies and as businesses and as individuals.
Deborah, Chad, thank you so much for being with us. For all of you who are watching and attending, please don't forget to download. My colleagues, Vanessa and Simone, are sharing the link for you to download also on the chat. See you soon for our first panel.
Thank you.
So thank you again, Deborah and Chad, for your remarks, your leadership, and your support. We would not be here if it was not because of you who founded the GFCC, who have steered us to be here in this global community with a footprint in 30 countries today. A few quick announcements before I announce our next panel. Please join us in social media. We're tweeting using the hashtag GIS 2021 and also the hashtag future competitiveness. We would not also be here today. We wouldn't be here if without the support of the sponsors who made possible the Frame the Future series. The Council on Competitiveness, our founding member in the United States, Lockheed Martin Corporation, that has sponsored not just the Frame the Future series, but one of the sessions of this very own Global Innovation Summit. The Brazilian National Confederation of Industry, and Japan Science and Technology Agency. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to download the papers, the documents that we're releasing today. The whole summit was organized around 5 future-defining ideas: innovation, sustainability, resilience, inclusiveness, and partnerships. You will see those reflected in our agenda. We have 2 days and 2 segments in each day. Following right now, we're getting started with our first panel conversation, Frame the Future. We'll have a second panel conversation in the morning period, morning in the East Coast in the United States, Eastern time. We're having Frame the Future and a panel conversation on future innovation. And very exciting, we're having a keynote by Jim Clifton, the chairman and CEO of the Gallup Group. So what's next? We have our Frame the Future conversation coming up. Stay tuned. See you in a minute.